The mother has said, India is not the earth, the rivers, the mountains of this land. Neither is it a collective name for the inhabitants of this country. India is a living being, as much living as, say, Shiva. India is a goddess as Shiva is a god. If she likes, she can manifest in human form. Mother India is not a piece of earth. She is a power, a godhead, for all nations have such a Devi supporting their separate existence. The soul of India is one and indivisible. India is conscious of her mission in the world. She is waiting for the exterior means of manifestation. India is the guru of nations, the physician of the human soul in his profounder maladies. She is destined once more to new mold the life of the world and restore the peace of the human spirit. In the whole creation, the earth has a place of distinction because, unlike any other planet, it is evolutionary with a psychic entity at its center. In it, India in particular is a divinely chosen country. So, everyone here, Om Namo Bhagavate. Sri Aurobindo was born in Calcutta 150 years ago, educated at Cambridge University. He was a Cambridge topper, ICS topper, and a brilliant scholar in Greek, Latin, English, French. In fact, his examiner said that the best answer paper that in English that he had ever read, English, Greek, and Latin that he had ever valued was Aurobindo Ghosh. Then he gave up. He did not want to join the ICS because at that time he had developed strong patriotic feelings. So he did not join the ICS. Returned to India, worked under Maharaja of Baroda as vice principal of college, Baroda College, and he was an agnostic in the beginning. But in 1892, he wrote brilliant articles in Induprakash, criticizing the then Congress party, saying it is the blind being led by, if not by the blind, at least by the one-eyed. In 1892, he wrote articles highly critical of the then Congress party for being a petition-giving organization rather than fighting for India's freedom. He criticized Congress for being an elitist institution and he called for a mass movement against the British. He was far ahead of the times. And Lokmanya Tilak and a few others asked him to restrain. And they told him that this will get him into trouble. The Maharaja of Baroda went with a retinue to Kashmir. Sri Aurobindo accompanied him. There at the Shankaracharya temple, he had a vision. And that was, he had written about it in a poem, Advaita. Then in the Kali temple in Narmada Valley, he had a vision of Kali. So these are the stages. Then he edited Bande Mataram. He was the first to talk about Purna Swaraj. Subhash Chandra Bose has written that two factors influenced him in his life. One is Sri Aurobindo, another is the Bhagavad Gita. In fact, Subhash Bose listened to Sri Aurobindo speaking in Calcutta, and that was the turning point in his life. This idea of freedom dawned into him only by listening to the fiery speeches of Sri Aurobindo in Calcutta. In fact, Sri Aurobindo went toured in Bengal and different parts of the country speaking about India's freedom. In Bande Mataram, he wrote fiery articles about the Shakti, Bharata Shakti, and the greatness of India's past. Then he was the first accused in the Alipore bomb case, and for a year he was in jail, in Alipore jail. There Vasudeva Krishna appeared before him. He saw Vasudeva everywhere, that vision of Vasudeva everywhere, and that was another turning point in his life. And Lord Krishna told him that it is his responsibility to take care of India's freedom. You concentrate on yoga. And the famous Uttarpara speech, Lord Krishna told him that Sanatana Dharma is nationalism. So long as Sanatana Dharma is there, India will be there. When Sanatana Dharma perishes, India will perish. That is, he asked, Lord Krishna asked Sri Aurobindo to go into yoga. And that was the purpose of his manifestation. he was informed. And even after being acquitted in the Alipore bomb case, the British were after him. Sister Nivedita asked him to leave Calcutta. He had an Adesh and he came to Chandanagur, which was ruled by the French, then to Pondicherry, which was ruled by French. Pondicherry's original name was Vedapuri. The place where Sri Aurobindo Ashram was situated is exactly the location where Saint Augustine did tapas and yagna several millennia back. And in Sri Aurobindo's Bande Mataram, then Karma Yogin, in these two pre-1910 books, a lot of articles are there on India, on Indian history, Indian traditions, and he was very progressive in thinking. He said that we cannot keep 1/4 of the population as untouchables. This attitude has to change. His attitude towards women, all of these reminded us of Swami Vivekananda, who said, our religion is in the kitchen, our religion is in the cooking pot, our religion is don't touch meism. So Sri Aurobindo has the same that sociological insights. He wanted to create a new Bharatvash, getting the best from the ancient, but also integrating it with the best from the West. And he did not say that everything in the past was golden. There were things that had to change according to the changing times. A lot of deterioration and degeneration and fossilization had taken place in the march of time. So Sri Aurobindo was one of the great rishis of Bharatvarsha. And in Foundations of Indian Culture, which was part of Arya, 1914 and 1921, he published Arya. They run into 40 volumes, each into 1,000 pages. Nobody in human history has written so much. And it is not ordinary writing. It is a writing of a very high consciousness. Each sentence will take you to a higher level of consciousness. In Arya, he wrote the famous book, Foundations of Indian Culture. Even now, we can use it to refute those who attack India, who attack Sanatana Dharma. Each point is given in Foundations of Indian Culture. Sri Aurobindo, and in Arya you find Foundations of Indian Culture, then the Life Divine, in which he talks about the evolution of consciousness from animal to man to superman, evolution of the involution of Satchidananda or Brahman, the evolution of Satchidananda, and Satchidananda in a veiled form in all places, the evolution from inconscience to matter, matter to life, life to mind. Now we are at that stage of mind, and the mind is divisive. The problem is we have created an intellectual world, and the mind is very divisive, and mind creates problems. Mind creates problems. The intellect is, mind is not final. Man is not final. Mind is not final. Man is not final. Man has to go to higher levels of consciousness, and we have to go beyond the mind to higher mind, illumined mind, intuitive mind, over mind, finally the supermind. The supramental consciousness has to descend. Few people are getting enlightenment, but humanity is not changing. For humanity to change, consciousness has to change. We have to evolve to higher levels of consciousness. We have created a mental civilization. We have to move to the supramental civilization. And he said, India is the guru of the world. And the mother has said, India is not the earth, the rivers, the mountains of this land. Neither is it a collective name for the inhabitants of this country. India is a living being, as much living as, say, Shiva. India is a goddess as Shiva is a god. If she likes, she can manifest in human form. Mother India is not a piece of earth. She is a power, a godhead, for all nations have such a Devi supporting their separate existence. The soul of India is one and indivisible. India is conscious of her mission in the world. She is waiting for the exterior means of manifestation. India is the guru of nations, the physician of the human soul in his profounder melodies. She is destined once more to new mold the life of the world and restore the peace of the human spirit. In the whole creation, the earth has a place of distinction because, unlike any other planet, it is evolutionary with a psychic entity at its center. In it, India in particular is a divinely chosen country. There is only one. Mother wrote to Indira Gandhi, who was the Prime Minister of India. There is only one country in the world that knows that there is only one truth to which everything should be turned, and that is India. Other countries have forgotten it, but in India it is ingrained in the people, and one day it will come out. In Arya, we have Foundations of Indian Culture, then his commentaries on the Upanishads, then Secret of the Veda. The Vedic truth was locked. Sri Aurobindo unlocked it. Sankaracharya's ritual interpretation, Max Miller's interpretation that the Indians are tribals. Sri Aurobindo differed from these two, and he gave us a mystic interpretation of the Vedas, the secret of the Veda. The Vedic gods appeared before Sri Aurobindo. And his essays on the Gita, his essays on the sociology, on the the evolution of humanity, that is human unity, human cycle, war and self-determination, then the life divine, so many, 40 volumes running into each volume 1000 pages. Nobody in human history has written so much. And in Foundations of Indian Culture, he writes page on page on India. It is Mother India revealing to us her story. And he starts with the Vedic period. Her first period was luminous with the discovery of the spirit. The second complemented the discovery of the Dharma. The third elaborated into detail. The first simpler formulation of the Shastra, but none was exclusive. The three elements are always present. At the Vedic dawn, the Rishis had the vision of Satyam, Rhythm, Brihat. The central idea of the Vedic Rishis was the transition of the human soul from a state of death to a state of immortality. And Rishis like Vishwamitra, Vashishta, Vasudeva, so many Rishis were there. The Indian mind has always turned back to the Vedic home of origins and springs of perennial truth. Then the Upanishadic age, the insights of the Veda became more defined and intuition went hand in hand with logical reasoning. The Upanishads added intellectual dimension to Vedic poetry. The ideas of the Upanishads can be rediscovered in the thought of Pythagoras and Plato, and later in Neoplatonism, Gnosticism, Sufism, the philosophical thinking of the West. And then Sri Aurobindo describes the times of the Upanishads. The scenes of the old world live before us in a few pages. The sages sitting in their groves ready to test and teach the corner. Princes and learned Brahmins and greatly lauded nobles going about in search of knowledge. The king's son in his chariot, and the illegitimate son of the servant girl seeking any man who might marry in himself the thought of life and the world of revelation. The typical figures and personalities, Janaka, the subtle mind of Ajatashatru, Raikva of the cart, Yajnavalkya, militant for truth, calm and ironic, Krishna, son of Devaki, who had single word of Rishi Gora who heard a single word of Rishi Gora and knew at once the eternal, the ashramas, the courts of kings, who were also spiritual discoverers and thinkers, the great sacrificial assemblies where the sages met and compared their knowledge. We see how the soul of India was born and how arose this great birth song in which it soared from the earth into the supreme spirit. The Vedas and the Upanishads are not only the sufficient fountainhead of Indian philosophy and religion, but of all Indian art, poetry, and literature. And then he comes to the period of the epics, and he describes Ramayana and Mahabharata, their uniqueness, their significance, and then a classical Sanskrit literature, Kalidasa, and also how this Vedic wisdom got filtered into the different literatures of India. He deals in detail right way back in 1914 about Tiruvalluvar, Advaita, the classical Sanskrit age, the Shaiva saints, the great epics of Tulsidas, Kamban, and Nanak, the Sikh gurus. So the Vedic wisdom, how it got filtered into the Indian languages and Indian traditions. And he has translated Tiruvalluvar. He studied Tamil. Subramania Bharati taught him Tamil. Sri Aurobindo taught Subramania Bharati Vedas. And Subramania Bharati wrote a book, Veda Rishigalin Kavyangal, that is the poetry of the Vedic Rishis. After coming in contact with Sri Aurobindo, Bharati's poetry changed. And he started writing about the Vedas and Upanishads, and that profound impact is there in his Tamil poetry. So, and in Pondicherry, a group of people used to assemble, and Sri Aurobindo read a verse from the Rig Veda and described the meaning. He had his own mystic interpretation of the Vedas, unlike Sankaracharya's ritualistic interpretation. And Sri Aurobindo not only talked about the golden past, but of a golden future, that humanity is evolving. that greater rishis will come in the future. And he said that we are moving towards that supramental age. India pursued the spirit but neglected matter. The West pursued matter but neglected the spirit. What is required, he said, is an integration of matter and spirit. He believed, Sri Aurobindo wrote that the Mayavada of Shankaracharya did a lot of harm to this country. We became a life-denying society. And he wanted a divine life in a divine body. That spirituality is not an escape from life, but leading a divine life here itself. He took us back to Krishna's Vedanta and the guest preached in the Gita at Kurukshetra that Sri Aurobindo's spirituality was a life-affirming spirituality, not a life-denying spirituality. And he says in Foundations of Indian Culture, India of the ages is not dead, nor has she spoken her last creative word. She lives and has still something to do for herself and the human peoples. And that which we must seek now is to awake and is not the anglicized oriental people, docile people of the West, and doomed to repeat the cycle of Occident's success and failure, but still the ancient, immemorable Shakti, recovering her deepest self, lifting her head higher towards the supreme source of life and strength, and turning to discover the complete meaning and to a vaster form of a Dharma. Of course, Sri Aurobindo says again and again that spirituality is the keynote to Indian thought. Unless we understand that this is essentially a spiritual society, we can never understand India. That India has told us this body, mind is limited. We are that eternal soul. And Amritavsha Putra, the Upanishad says, so we are the eternal. And unless the West has always concentrated on this body, mind. And mind, we have created a mental civilization. Sri Aurobindo says we have to go beyond the mind. We have to go beyond man to higher levels of creation. And so Sri Aurobindo, educated in the West, he's a scholar in Greek, Latin, Italian, German. He's returned to India and studied Sanskrit and Indian languages. He became a prominent politician and a hero. Subhash Bose says that he would not have entered politics without Sri Aurobindo. So many have said this because he was the first to talk about Purna Swaraj. And we talk about post-colonialism, but nobody mentions Sri Aurobindo. He was the first post-colonial critic. He gave the counter discourse to the Western criticism of India way back in 1914 in Arya. And he refuted this Aryan Dravidian theory in Secret of the Veda. He says there has never been an Aryan Dravidian theory. This is one race. Indian race is one. There's no, he goes further and says the Indo-Afghan race is one. There has been never, he says this Dravidian theory is a concoction of the British Christian missionaries who have nefarious intentions in dividing this country. But people don't mention Sri Aurobindo. He sowed the seeds way back, more than 100 years back, he sowed the seeds of harmony. He wanted to lift humanity to higher levels of consciousness. Lord Krishna descended into Sri Aurobindo in 1926. And from 1926 to 1950, he did not get out of a room. He was doing tapas, trying to bring the supramental consciousness down. And because the supermind, the Vedas say, is hidden by a golden lid. Once the supermind descends, there is peace, there is harmony. Mother brought it down in 1956. It is there, the supramental. But it is caught in inconscience. Humanity has to change. We have to cooperate. The Supramental, Sri Aurobindo and Mother have repeatedly told us the golden era has come. We have to understand it, and future will be golden. And Sri Aurobindo's philosophy is integral, all-round fulfillment of the divine on this very earth. And the Mother has stated, India is not the earth, the rivers and the moon. India is a living being, like Shiva is a goddess. Like Shiva, India is a goddess, as Shiva is a god. If she likes, she can manifest in human form. Mother India is not a piece of earth. It is a godhead. So there are so many writings of Sri Aurobindo. He has dealt with almost all aspects of India. And Mother also has said, it is only India's soul who can unify the country. Externally, the provinces of India are very different in character, tendencies, culture. but her soul is one, intense in her aspiration towards the spiritual truth, the essential unity of creation. Subramanya Bharati said, "My mother India speaks 18 languages, but her soul is one." So, the Life Divine, Savitri, all these works have to be studied by us, and we have to create a Bharatvash, taking the best from the ancient and integrate it with best from the West. Sri Aurobindo did not reject the West. He wanted to integrate the West and the East. The West neglected spirit, India neglected matter. We have to integrate matter with spirit. In Auroville, you can see people from all over the world. Sri Aurobindo and Mother's tapas was a supreme tapas. They were supreme yogis, wanted to bring the supramental consciousness down and create a supramental era. Let us bow down to these avatars, because Bharatvash has created great rishis, and Swami Vivekananda and Sri Aurobindo in our times are the greatest rishis. Om Namo Bhagavate.